What's good, everybody? It's Lowe's here. We back on the throne of positivity where the first is last and the last is first. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also the notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Consider hitting that like button too because it helps the video go out to more people. So if you could do that, just right away hit that like button. That helps us so much you don't even understand. So thank you for everybody who has been supporting, sowing seed, commenting, liking, sharing these videos, and just contributing to the ministry in that way. I truly appreciate it. So today I want to get into the courting and dating thing a little bit more specifically. I was thinking about the last video, and I know I said I didn't want to get too specific for what that looks like because I think that this has to be something that you seek God for, and everybody's situation is unique. We all have different backgrounds, different experiences, different, things we have been through, different traumas. So every situation is going to be unique of what courting actually looks like. However, I think that I can still present a little bit more substance for you guys to utilize in your pursuit or wherever you find yourself in life currently. I really want to be as helpful to you as possible because I think that marriage is the most beautiful thing in all creation. You guys know that's already my belief. So if I can be a part of contributing to somebody's story in any type of way, then for me, that means the world. So if you ever get married or you find your spouse and you utilize any of these techniques, holla at your boy, let me know. I would love to see the story. I love hearing the testimonies of different people and watching those testimonies on YouTube and seeing how God brought people together. It's one of the most fascinating things to me is like, I never thought that somebody could be brought together that way. And, why not let the author of salvation, author and perfecter of our faith, take the pen and write our love story? Like, imagine, I always talk about how the book of life is being written about our personal and individual lives. And I always wonder what my story will tell and indicate about how I've chosen to glorify God. But wouldn't you want to get the book of your romance of how God wrote the story out? I think that's something that is very interesting to me. It intrigues me on many levels. So without further ado, let me help you in this way. And I have my phone here, so I like the way that I did last time with the vision for my house. It felt very organized and as if I had things in order, you know what I mean? So I did that again. I want to go through some points, but I think the first place that I want to start is getting a little bit deeper on this leaving it in God's hands motif or strategy, because I don't know if I fully developed that or if you guys feel satisfied in that. I really don't know, guys. If I don't get comments, if I don't get feedback on these things, then I'm just here like in la la land. I don't really know how this is engaging you. Is it helping you? Imagine from my perspective, I really don't know what's going on. So what I try to do is everything that I do, whatever video, whatever post or live session podcast, I go back, I rewatch it or I reread, and I'm like, what questions do I still have after this? And do I feel satisfied in what I have explained? Did I take anything for granted? Like, am I just speaking from a place of knowledge without considering that you guys may not know what I'm speaking about? So in previous communications, I have told you guys how I got to the place of wanting to leave everything in God's hands. As a child or going through life, one of my biggest insecurities before Christ was the not knowing. Like, the unknown was the thing that I hated the most. And I've always had the desire for marriage, as I have explained, but that unknown, that question mark is the most frightful thing, because this determines everything. Like, this is the most important decision that we will make. So when I came to Christ, I said, Father, I'm going to leave this in your hands. I want you to take the pen from my hand and write out this story. Because if God does it, then we know that God does things to succeed. He doesn't do them for them to fail. God does things to perfection. He's not a God who leaves things undone. So if I can trust that, if I can know that God speaks and it must be complete, if I know God is faithful to his word and not just faithful to promise, but faithful to see it through. If you look at any story, the most important story in the Bible outside of the Gospels is the Exodus narrative. And I don't know if you guys get that sense, but you can see how much the Exodus narrative is part of the story of Israel by the way they mention and reference or allude to the Exodonian language or the narrative found there in every part of the Bible. Always they are referring to the Exodus, and this is where their story is changed. They are changed from what? From Hebrews to Israelites the moment that they cross that land. And what I find so fascinating is that God promises Abraham, he promises Isaac, he promises Jacob and his 12 sons something beautiful. Then Joseph comes along, and then Moses comes along, and then this whole thing happens. And it's like God at any point could have just took his hands off these things. But something so fascinating happens that God sees them through. And what I love about the Exodus story is that God, once they're in the wilderness, right, he's a pillar of fire, he's a cloud about them, he's darkness and light for them, he's their provider. And see how intimately God wants to be close to them, so that you can see that God really is dedicated to his word, and what he promises, he shackles himself to that. I'm not gonna just leave that on the surface level, because what I'm about to say is about to make you very uncomfortable if you've never thought about this way or heard it in this way. God is God. He is omnipotent. He is freedom itself. He is liberation itself, until one moment. The moment that God speaks, he becomes a prisoner to his own word. God is shackled to his own word. And I'm using these intentional words to describe the relation between God and his word. Because if you don't understand that, then we can't understand the incarnation. There's a reason why the word came flesh, not signifying any point in time that it came to exist, because Jesus always existed. But if you can understand that when God speaks, he shackles himself to that, then the greatest thing that you need to figure out in life is nothing more important than what has God spoken to you. And you have to, with all your effort, determine, did God say this or did he not? Because if God said it, then God will do it. God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should change his mind. If God did not say it, no matter what you do, you can't make it happen. And if you want to keep trying to make it happen, then you know what the results are that you're going to get. So I'm bringing this up because this is going to play a vital role in you determining who is this individual that God has for you. Now, going to what I was discussing earlier, if this is true that God shackles himself to his word and he's going to see it through all the way to the altar, but not just to the altar, but throughout all the seasons of life and that marriage to the grave, and even beyond the grave, God is committed to his word. From generation to generation, God is faithful. I don't know if this is obvious to people, but when I really learned this a couple years ago, it absolutely blew my mind. And I'm going to tell you how it affected my prayers. God promises Abraham, and the Bible in Psalm 105, I have to bring this up so that we can develop this further. Sorry. So we got to go to Psalm 105. I wasn't planning to go here, but it's just coming to me as we speak. And there's this very fascinating set of verses found in verses 4. Look at what it says. Seek the Lord in his strength. Seek his presence continuously. Remember the wondrous works that he has done, his miracles and the judgments he uttered. So remember the things God has done in your life, right? O offspring of Abraham, his servant, children of Jacob, his chosen ones. He is the Lord our God. His judgments are in all the earth. He remembers his covenant forever, the word that he commanded for 1,000 generations, the covenant that he made with Abraham, his sworn promise to Isaac, which he confirmed to Jacob as a statute, to Israel as an everlasting covenant. Do you see what's going on there? Abraham was the one that was promised. And we find that in Genesis chapter 18, why he promised him. Because he knew Abraham would teach his children the ways of the Lord. And because Abraham was committed in that way, even before Abraham knew it, God established the promise and covenant with Abraham. And then he goes and he's faithful to Isaac because of Abraham. Then he goes to Jacob because of Abraham. Because that's where the promise is found. The promise is found with Abraham, but because it was found with Abraham, he continues to be faithful throughout all generations. And now look at what it says in verse 40. They asked and he brought quail and gave them bread from heaven in abundance. He opened the rock and water gushed out. It flowed through the desert like a river. For he remembered his holy promise and Abraham his servant. So he brought his people out with joy, his chosen ones with singing, and he gave them the lands of the nation, and they took possession of the fruit of the people's toil, that they might keep his statutes and observe his law. Praise the Lord. Now you may be wondering, what's my point here? God remembers his promise. The Bible in Psalm 119 verse 49 to 50 says, remember your promises, O God, for they give me life. But what I'm really trying to get to is that in the book of Hebrews, this is a weird connection to make. The Bible says that Abraham paid tithes for Levi when he paid tithes to Melchizedek. Why is that important? Because you may see things as if things start with you, or as if God's promise is just now. If you really understand that whatever God is dealing with in your life has a history, not only a history, God got receipts of his faithfulness, and in fulfilling the promise to you, he's actually fulfilling his original promise to Abraham. So from Abraham till now, God is faithful. He has been faithful, and this is how my prayers have changed since I've recognized this. God is faithful from every generation to generation, proving himself as if for the first time, although he has nothing to prove. When I'm praying for the promise to complete, I always tell God, Father, don't do it for me. You guys heard me say this. Don't do it for me. Do it for my wife, Lord. She deserves this. I don't deserve this. Don't do it for me. Do it for my children, oh God. Don't do it for me. Do it for yourself. But something that I've never brought you guys into is that I always tell God, remember your friend Abraham, O Lord. Because in fulfilling the promise to me, O God, you are showing yourself faithful to Abraham. And although I be not a Jew, O God, you yourself say in your word in the book of Romans that the seed of Abraham is not by the flesh, but by the blood of Christ, by those who believe in your Son by faith. Now, this is a long introduction into why it's important that we leave things in God's hands. What I'm trying to get you to see is the importance of how God is that dedicated to his word and how he sees this in a multi-dimensional, multi-generational way. Because if you can see how committed God is to this, then that should really put the fire under you to seek the Lord for his decision. Because if you go and you leave this in the hands of God, then there's nothing you have to worry about. And again, if you can determine that God did say this to you, if he chooses a person for you, no matter what happens between you and that person finally being brought together at the altar, those things are the trials and tribulations that must occur to form your character and form their character. Because in Psalm 105, what's so fascinating is that I think verses 16 to 19, it says that God sent a man ahead of the Hebrews to establish his covenant. And he's talking about Joseph. so that he may save those people that betrayed him. And the reason why he did that was to lift Joseph up. But the Bible says that the word of the Lord tested him until the promise completed. So if God said it, he's going to do it. You see how these propositions are now being cemented as foundation? Did God say it? Yes. Okay. He said it. He's committed. He's faithful. And if he's faithful, he's going to develop our character. So that means trials are coming. Why? To form both of our characters so we could be ready to meet at that altar. Now, I know that seems like a lot that is front loaded in regard to correcting mentality to get ready for courting and dating. As we transition into that specifically, the reason why I'm putting so much effort, so much emphasis on the front end is because I think that anything that you put a tremendous amount of effort into is going to make the rest of things not easier, but make you better prepared to face them. And if we think about it, like, I don't want to judge, but I feel like most people, they just treat this like it's not that serious when choosing a partner. And I'm not trying to convince anybody that you can't choose your partner on your own and do that to the degree that satisfies you. I'm just showing you with things that I've been through, man. Like, you know, I've been single 10 years. I've mentioned that before, but you know, one time was enough for me to be like, okay, I don't want anything even close to what I experienced. You know, it was a lot of pain and heartache that it reminded me of what I wanted. Like, I'm not trying to do this alone. And if we can really put as much into the hands of God, it's almost as if absolving yourself of the responsibility. Because I'll tell you, like, if you determine that this is the promise of God, and then how he gets you there, the trials that come in between, now you have something to stand on. You could say, Father, I didn't say this. You said it, Lord. I didn't decide this. You decided this, Lord. So if this is happening and I'm going through this pain, I'm going through these trials and tribulations, I can always point back to God like, Lord, you said this, not me. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't desire this. That doesn't mean that I don't want this. Of course I do. But remember what I said last video is that if you make the decision yourself in the marriage, you can always attack that decision and just say, all right, obviously I'm a different person now, so I don't have to commit to this the same way that I should. But if I know that the decision was made in heaven and not on earth, neither by me nor my wife, imagine the confidence that we have every time we have some type of mind-bending, relationship-breaking, reality-shattering experience. Because, like, to my wife, baby girl, mi reina, mi leona, we gotta know that we're gonna go through some real things, you know. But I think that's the beauty of it, is that I think conflict adds so much beauty to the world and so much beauty to our marriage, because it's inevitable, right? Like, I don't want somebody who's just gonna agree with me all the time. That's boring. I'll marry myself. I just kiss myself in the mirror and be done with it. Like, you know, like, who wants that? And I'm pretty sure she don't want somebody that's exactly like her. We want to have like common interests, common goals, visions, dreams, desires, ways of doing things, but not like a carbon copy. We want that contrast. We want those opposing elements. But if we want the beauty that shade and shadow, contrast, or opposition can bring, then we got to be ready for conflict, because that's the nature of things. But if we can overcome that conflict, it brings beauty. So in the midst of those conflicts, we can always together in agreement go back to God and say, Father, you made this decision for us. And then what is God going to do? I did make this decision. I did promise you. So now you guys be patient and wait on me. Because you know what's one of the most important things that I learned with God? And I was thinking about this last night, and I was praying to him, because I'm like, Lord, I'm in isolation. When problems arise, I'm forced to wait days on end with you, Lord. I can't, like if let's say, for example, I have an insecurity or something happens in regard to my wife, my woman of my dreams, right? If something happens where there's some type of friction or there's some type of problem that has arisen or some type of insecurity arises in me, then I can't just get over that right away. I need to get over it right away, right? But what I have noticed is that since I don't know her, since I can't talk to her, since I can't explain my insecurity or resolve any issues with her directly, I have had to deal with things days and sometimes weeks on end with solely fighting against that very thing by bringing it to the Lord. And what I brought to God is like, Lord, in singleness and isolation, I can do that. But when her and I get married, how is that going to work, Lord? Because here I'm forced. I can just be in isolation and silence. But when her and I come together, how is that going to work? And that's something we're going to have to figure out, right? But I think it's beautiful that God shows like your insecurity can't outlast my promise. The conflict will not outlast my promise. Whatever's going on, opposition or friction, it can't outlast my promise. And that's what I've learned in, again, praying for this woman, fighting for her on my knees, all these different things. It's like, okay, God's promise endures forever. Everything else will fade, but his word shall remain and endure forever. So I'm trying to encourage you to leave that decision in his hands so that he can show you. The more you leave it in my hands, the more of a guarantee you have for your future, because you'll always be able to come back to me. And when you come back to me, I'm going to point you back to my word, Jesus Christ, and the promise that I made. Your house is built on the rock. Now we are going to get over this and we won't be able to run out. There's no exit doors here, baby. So all of that just to encourage you, like, be confident in choosing that person so that when you do choose this person, you have that confidence. Now let's get a little bit into the courting and dating. That's here. We're going to be here for a second because you don't just get to courting and dating. How am I dealing with the choosing of the person? I want to give you a little bit of advice there. What kind of things should you look for? I'm going to say some random things, I guess. Again, I think that you should leave this as much in the hands of God as possible. The Bible says, test and see what is the good and perfect will of the Lord. In seeking the Lord, there's going to be this experimentation. So as much hands-off experimentation that you can do without engaging the person that you're interested in is going to lead you to know, is this person the one that God is pointing to me or not? And time is something that God is going to use because patience, there's no shortcut to patience. So what are some things that you can look for? Are they interested in you? Are you interested in them? Attraction is not the greatest indicator, but it is a good indicator. Another thing that you can do is do the nonverbal communication. Look into their eyes. Are they looking back at you? You know what I mean? Are you guys locking eyes, right? Like if her eyes dilate when she looks at you, not that you're going to be all up in her eye. Like, is your eyes dilating, girl? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, pay attention to her body language. If you look at her, does she look away quick? Pay attention to her subtleties. And I think the more that you can, again, front load these things to study an individual, whether man or woman, then you can see their character. By you keeping distance, the more distance you can create between you and this person, the more opportunity God is going to give you to witness their true character. Because again, like I gave advice to women, if you really want to know if that man is for you, deny what he really wants. If you are his desire, deny him access to you. I'm not talking about playing games because I'm not with the games. But I believe that if that woman is mature, she's going to deny me. And she's going to deny me strategically because I believe that her confidence is so thorough in the Lord that she's like, no, Lord, I don't care what I feel, what I think, what I believe. Lord, I'm not giving him access to me no matter what. And I'm going to give you the key, Lord, or you the guard. You're the one protecting my gates in the city. So let that man go through me. And the more that we do this, it's like the man has to overcome. He has to seek the Lord now to be like, what is the strategy, God? Because she over here breaking my head. Like, your boy is going crazy over here. I don't know what's going on. Like, what do I do? What do I say? Why is this not working? I try to joke with her and she ain't laughing at my jokes. Like, I be mad nervous around her. Like, Lord, she intimidates me sometimes. I'm confident, and I'm not going to show her she intimidates me. But, like, what do I do? Father, everything that I'm trying is not working. And like, God will tell the man, like, good, because it's not by your strength, it's by my wisdom and my might. My glory shall reign. It's not about you and it's not about her. So I think that the more distance you can create and the more patient you can be, then the more you're going to be able to witness how are they really seeking God to either receive me as the woman or for you to gain the answers as the man. And I really believe, remember that I told you that I don't believe in dating, but I believe in courting. And courting, I don't think should be long. Like, I think it could be like, it needs to be as soon as possible. However, that doesn't just mean willy-nilly, right? I think that the time of no contact and no communication should be prolonged. It should really be a thorough investigation. Like, you really need to give God every opportunity to prove you wrong or prove you right. Now, again, I don't want to get too specific on that because it's different for everybody. But the more you can create that distance, the more you could be patient, the more God is going to tell you, wait on me. He's going to show you, look at their character. Look at how I'm putting this in front of you. I want you to see this, not to make a move, but I want you to witness what I had for you and how what I have for you is far greater than anything you will ever ask me for before. You have no idea, beloved. So be patient. Don't act on this. I want you to be patient. I'm just showing you. I'm taking you through a stroll in the park to give you even a single taste of what I have for you. And the more you do that, the more God develops you. And then it forces you to change as an individual on both sides. So if you can prolong this the most that you can, then you're ready for the courting. God is going to close the gap. If you create the gap as wide as you possibly can to absolve yourself from responsibility and always be like, hey, it was you, Lord. I didn't do this. It was you, okay? Then, fellas, you could you could start asking God, Lord, help me attract her, Lord. Help me do my little bald-headed chicken dance and try to do my mating routine, my ritual. She go like this bald-headed chicken or what? You know what I'm saying? Can she be attracted to you that way? And then God is going to teach the woman how to receive that or how to give that back so that it's reciprocal and mutual. Because the distance, God is going to close himself. Remember, the more that you put into his hands, the more he's going to take control. And the more distance you create, the more opportunity you give him to show you the truth and to close the distance. Because the wider the gap, the more distance can be closed. The more work you're giving God to close, the more testimony, the more evidence you have, like this was God and not me. And as you do that, God is going to start putting things back in your hands. Like, okay, you know what I mean? Do your little go ahead, bald-headed chicken, go ahead. God is going to give you the strategy, like, yo, smile at her, you know what I'm saying? Tell her good morning, you know what I mean? And God will tell her, like, you could let him in just a little bit and then let him in a little bit more and more so we could gain ground. And God is going to teach us how to get closer and closer to each other. You understand what I'm saying? Like, the more we leave it in his hands, the more he'll put it in our hands over time, because he wants to be sought after for his wisdom, but he doesn't want to do things for us. In the same way, my children, I want to teach them and lead them into adulthood and maturity. But as time goes on, I need to put more and more responsibility in their hands so that they could finally walk in the wisdom that I taught them. I don't want to live their life for them. Who am I? Like, what? Beloved, live your life. Mamita, my daughters, like, go live your life, but do it with the wisdom my mother and your father, my wife and I have taught you, your mother and your father have taught you. And I think the same is true with God. He's trying to bring us to maturity to finally say, here, now I've prepared the location. I've prepared your house and built the foundation. Everything is set. Now go be fruitful and multiply. Do with the garden what you will, but expand my vision. And I think that's what do we want to call this stage? I don't know. I was going to say something stupid and then it immediately left my head. Oh my God. I'm such a cornball. Have you guys got this yet or what? So what do we call this stage? Because I'm trying to lead up to courting. The attraction stage, let's say the distance and attraction stage. That's so corny. I don't know. The attraction stage. There's the proving stage. Let's say the proving stage, the testing stage that's filled with distance. Then there's the attraction phase. And then there's the courting phase. So we already said how God is going to bring us together and he'll give you the answers. Now, you would wonder, how do I know it's coming from God? Ask God to do it in the most impossible way. Like, Lord, in the crowd of people, she does this or that, or he does this or that, in a way that's not obvious to anybody else or me, that I know that it's not me doing this, make this happen. But then another indicator that it's God is, this is how I've learned to hear the voice of God. Anything good that comes into my head is not for me. Automatically, that's God. There's nothing good in me. I'm a wicked man without the Lord. So there's nothing good that I can create on my own. So anything that comes into my mind during prayer or throughout my day, that's evidence that God is speaking to us. So keep that in mind. So now we're in the attraction stage, we are getting there closer and closer, right? So once you guys are in friendship, develop that friendship however you want. Learn each other's idiosyncrasies, which you probably already developed that while in your observation phase. Maybe that should have been that sounds better. Observation, attraction, and then courting. In the observation stage, you study this person, you know their character, you know their ways, and now you could get into it. And something that I want to say is, in the observation, pay attention to these people. For example, I need to look at my wife. Do I see a mother in her? How does she deal with children? How does she deal with other women? How does she operate as a leader? Watching every move that she makes, all the words that come out of her mouth, paying attention thoroughly, looking at the deepest detail of the deepest detail, like letting no thing go unnoticed. Because at the end of the day, we're not looking at physical beauty. We're trying to accomplish a purpose. Is that the woman that I want to raise my children? And is she who I want to see in my daughters? I know that the woman that God has for me, I've said it before, I want to see my wife in my daughters. Because what God has shown me of that woman, wow. I can't wait to meet this woman. At the altar, boo. Holla. Hopefully you've been thinking about what we go do, where we going, what's the venue, all of that stuff, the colors, the people, the budget, how many people are coming, who we not invited. Let me stop. So I think that's going to help you. Like, look at this. And when you're looking at the guy, is that who you want your sons to be? You really got to pay attention and don't get fooled by the John 3:16 in their bio. So let's get into the courting stage a little bit more. What does that look like? So again, courting is dating, but with the full intention that we getting married, that we made a decision, that we agree together, this is where we're going. Now, again, I think that should be short. It shouldn't be long. I think a year is maximum. Listen, I could meet my wife tomorrow. It's 10/10 Friday, March 22nd. It's 9:13 on my watch. I don't know if you can see that. Hey, I didn't switch my watch. Where is it? 9:13. Can you see that? I'm not flipping it around. 9:13, Amos 9:13. I did not plan that. But I could meet that woman in 15 minutes and be like, boo, I'm ready to marry you. I'm ready to marry you. There needs to be a process. And something that I think I failed to mention is the way that I'm going to know my wife is who she is. I put the most impossible sign before God that only he would be able to determine that thing and reveal it to her so that I can know it's her. If she was to be able to reveal that to me, or me to her, if you flip it on the other side, then we could know. And I think that's something that I failed to mention that I think all of you should do, is that have something secret that you tell nobody about except the person maybe that you're interested in, that you think, and not fully reveal, like some type of test, some type of thing that only God can do, and say, I want them to do it. And then if you can get that, that's why I'm saying, if I meet her today and she tells me what I asked God for, or I tell her what I've asked God for, I will marry her in 15 minutes. I don't care. We could go to the court. We could do this however you want to, Bobo. So that's something that I failed to mention, and I'm mentioning now. So in the courting stage, I really think that that should be between, like, let's say 3 months, because realistically, that's what I think you need to get married, is like three months to plan and prep. I think that's enough time to plan things, because we don't gotta overcomplicate it. You know what I'm saying? I just want to get married. I want to love you. Okay. I'm so stupid, man. I don't know. I can't deal with myself sometimes. I don't know how my wife is gonna deal with me. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, "You sure you want me, boo boo?" Like, anyways. So 3 months to a year should be the courting, and I think during this time you guys should be getting to know each other, but not getting to know each other too much, if that makes sense, because there's still, there still needs to be some things that gotta be taken into account. During this time, you are getting to know each other. What are we in agreement about? How are we going to do things? And what does that actually look like? Now, here's some ground rules that I think are important. It is the man's responsibility to protect the woman's innocence, holiness, and purity. Beloved, and I say that with authority and firmly, I tell you that because you should not. Bro, that's God's daughter, man. You should have reverence for that woman. And I'm going to tell you what I told God. I remember when I first came to California, August 23rd, 2020, God gave me another vision in the church. And I'll never forget that God showed me a vision, like it was almost like a dream, things changed, and like I was no longer where I was, and I was having this vision, and I saw this woman bright as light. And I saw her holiness. And I'm talking about in the vision, like not necessarily physically, not physically at all. But I saw the woman and I'm like, yo, her holiness, her innocence was pure. I felt like I was blinded by it. And I'm not trying to talk too highly about it, but this is what I experienced. And yo, it was so pure that I couldn't even look in that direction, because it wasn't that she was that, it was that God's radiance was glowing through her. So powerful was the glory of God on her shoulders that I couldn't even look at her, the same way Moses descended from the mountain. So I remember I went home that night and I prayed to God, and I'm like, Lord, I'm tasked with protecting my future wife, this woman of my dreams who I haven't met. I don't know who she is. I'm tasked with protecting her holiness, and whatever you showed me in that vision, Lord, as bright as that light was, use that to keep me at bay, Lord, to keep me in correction, to keep me in line, oh Father. And you know what I told God? I know this sounds crazy to people, but I told God, I'm not kissing her. I'm not kissing that woman until we get to the altar, Lord. If we become boyfriend and girlfriend and we start courting, my God, I don't care. I don't know when we're going to get married. I don't know how long we're going to court. But no matter what it is, Father, I'm never kissing that woman. Like, you know what I'm saying? You see the videos of TikToks. I remember like when I had TikTok, it would be like the girl will go up to hug her husband, and then he'll be like, nope. He'll be like, nah. He's like, what's up, big dog? And he'll do like the clap. That's what I'm gonna be doing if we court. It'd be like, no, excuse me, skirt. No, like that. But nah, I'm just kidding. I would never do that. But something cute that I've always wanted to do with my wife, like if we were to court and become friends and, develop our friendship, I really want to respect her and revere her so much that she could feel comfortable and confident that I would never put her in a position to feel tempted or that she would feel uncomfortable. I would never intentionally do that. And I will be careful about the places we go, the situations we find ourselves in. I will be very careful with that because we're both flesh and blood. There's no need for that temptation. And again, I respect her. So, something cute that I told God that I always wanted to do with her is like, wanted us to create our own little greeting, like our own ritual. You know how people be like, their best friends, they be doing their little handshake or whatever. I want to do that with her. Like, all right, boom, we got our handshake, bop, 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 whatever, kick with the legs, spin around, do a backflip, hit a handstand, do some push-ups. Nah, it's not. But, and then lock in, do something cute. And that'll be like, yo, that's how we greet. You know what I mean? And then when we get to the altar, we do it again. And then boom, finally we could kiss. And the reason why I think this is so important of being that extreme. Now you do whatever you want. You feel like you can't handle that. Listen, man, that's too intimate of a thing for me. If I can't go up to anybody else and just kiss them on the lips, then why would I do it to her? What, because we courting? Nah, man, you got to put a ring on this finger for these lips. Nah. But I think that's so intimate that we need to protect that. And if we revere this, it's going to make it that much sweeter when God allows us to have that. Because again, in our hypersexualized culture, things have no value anymore. Holding hands doesn't mean anything personal or intimate anymore. Kissing has no significance. Why? Because the physical contact between people that they don't even know each other's names, they've given up their bodies, has now been reduced to the level of shaking somebody's hand. You know what I mean? So if we want to reverse that, I think that we need to put reverence back on all these things. And I see kissing as a very intimate thing. And I want to protect her. Again, I want her to know that I revere her and I respect my father and her father. And to give confidence to her earthly father to know, like, yo, I'm not just respecting you and revering you because of who you are, but I also want you to know, like, I'm willing to take this role from you. I want to show you that I can handle this authority and that I really will protect your daughter. Because protecting her doesn't mean from outside forces. Protecting her means protecting her from myself too. You know, and the reason why I really prayed this to God is because I've told you guys before, the more you're denied something, the more you desire it, right? The more you hunger for something, the greater your appetite becomes. And I'm not talking physical connection in the sense of the ultimate physical connection, but I'm talking about the beauty that if we even revere kissing to that degree, imagine the moment that her and I finally come together, that we've been denied in this way so long, and we have protected the essence of our union, the holiness of God, and all of those things. Like, how much more importance will it have? That's the level that I want to get on. And it's extreme, but hey, we got a lot of work to do in this society. And I just think it's important to deal with that. Like, I want this, you know, and I want to treat my wife the way that I would want men to treat my daughters in the future. And I want my sons to treat their wives the way that I am living it. I don't want to tell them do it because I said it and I never lived it. No, beloved, I've lived this and I've been disciplined. Your mother was disciplined. We controlled ourselves. And, you know, when we finally were able to be united as one in the Lord, then that had all the significance in the world. So that's up to you how you want to do it. I'm not sure if anybody has ever presented that to you. It's something that seems weird in our culture, but I don't care. I don't care what people think about me. I know what I desire, and I know how much. I can't even put a value. You can't value that woman. Like, she's priceless. Like that. We're far more than rubies and gold. So hopefully that makes sense. And then talking about these roles in this way, I want to get a little bit deeper on what is our responsibility in regard to men and women. I think this is where the courting is important, is to show the roles. You guys could go for a cup of coffee, do whatever you guys want, you know, within reason. But this time is a real opportunity to show your loyalty to God and demonstrate that you're willing and able to walk in your role as a man and as a woman. So I think something that needs to be very well established in your relationship is, when are you guys scheduling time, not only to date, right? Because dating is important, and scheduling it, but when are you guys reading the word together? And when are you guys praying together? And what are the days? Because I think weekly, you should be fasting at least once a week. How are you guys coming into agreement in that way? When you're on the phone, you guys could be cute and, you know, be all boo loving and like, yeah, I love you, boo. I like the way your toenails was looking, girl. I see you. You know what I mean? I see you did your hair, girl. I like it. You know what I'm saying? I like it, girl. Like, you know, you could be boo loving, but also remember, like, you as a man, you're the one that dictates. You're the one that leads. You're supposed to be the priest. And I'm going to label 5 things that I think a man should do and a woman equally. And one of those things is a priest. So you need to be dictating that God is involved in this. So praying on the phone, in person, reading the word, praying before meals, setting that example as the priest. And, you know, you really need to know the word of God as a man, bro. And I know this isn't common to hear in church, and a lot of people ain't gonna like this. The pastor ain't your wife's pastor. And I know that sounds strange. In some regard, he is, but the reality is that he's not. You're her pastor. You are the priest of the home. That's what the Bible says. And if you don't agree with me, Paul says to the Corinthians, and he qualifies this to Timothy, when the women are trying to talk in the church, not just talking, he says, go home and ask your husbands. Don't you find it interesting that he doesn't say, go ask the pastor? That's not interesting to you? He didn't even say as the apostle of apostles, ask me. He says, go home to your husbands and ask them. You know why he said that? Because it's not the pastor's responsibility to be the spiritual maturity or the figure in her life. That's your responsibility, beloved. You as the priest, you are her shepherd. Those are two separate roles. That's the second role. But you are her pastor, not the pastor in the church. And I know that that's going to ruffle some feathers. But even if I ever become a pastor, I'm going to let men know I'm not the pastor of your wife, bro. You need to know the word of God thoroughly enough that you are the pastor in the house. I'm not, that woman is not she's my sheep in the sense that both of you are my sheep. And I'm the spiritual authority over you guys as a whole, right? Like you guys already took your responsibility to do what you need in your dynamic in the home. And when there's things that you need even above that, I'm the spiritual maturity at that point, just to put myself there so you can understand it a little better. I know that's going to ruffle feathers, but it's biblical. And this is the reason why we have a lot of spiritual immaturity in the church, is because all these men have relinquished their authority and their responsibility to one man in the church. That was never meant to be that way. Never. There ain't no way. I'm responsible. And this is why I go so hard in seeking the scriptures, knowing the scriptures and all of that, so that I can teach her at home. Because the Sunday, that's the appetizer. The full course meals throughout the week and how I'm engaging her, how I'm developing her and growing her spiritually. And then again, the pastor on Sunday, he's there to supplement that. He's not the full course. Just so we know, like, because a lot of men, they don't know anything about the Bible. They can't lead spiritually, but then they want the woman to follow them, like, do what I say. Yeah, why? Do you have a biblical reference to that, beloved? So 5 things I want to lay out to you guys. Number 1, priest. And this is both male and female. This is not gender exclusive. Priest, monarch, king, queen, warrior, shepherd, and poet. Why are these things important? I already described what the priest does. I got into a little bit detail of what the shepherd does. Why the king? Because the king has to know how to rule, and the queen has to know how to follow and flourish that kingdom. She has to multiply that, his authority, his rule. But she rules with him, both on the same thrones. They sit on the same thrones, side by side. And then shepherd, what is a shepherd? A shepherd is male, but the shepherdess is there too. She needs to be able to lead in the home in her own way. Proverbs 31 shows that. And leading in the children and raising them up to be men and women of God. Implementing the things that the shepherd, the man, that's what a pastor means, is shepherd, has taught her, and she's going to teach that to her children. And then warrior, right? The man is the warrior in the sense of the protector, but the woman has that power because she's the intercessor. The way that God hears the prayers of a woman, I really believe there is a distinction. And if God favored anything, it's to hear the cries of his daughters. Be real. Because a man asking for help, there's no shortage of in the Psalms that in the day of my affliction, I cried to the Lord and he saved me. But I think that the way that God delivers a man and the way that he delivers a woman is 2 different things. And if you don't believe me, read Psalm 46. Psalm 46 versus the way God delivers men. Psalm 46 shows that female deliverance because God knows. If Peter says, live with your wives in a way understanding that they are the weaker vessel, not weaker in the way that you think, but that there is some fragility there, then God knows that better than anybody else. And he does incline his ear to a woman preferentially. And I know we don't like to hear that. There's no favorites in God. He's no respecter of persons. But in regard to the nature of a woman, I believe that he does. So understand the intercessor, the woman, and the way that she prays for her home. Beloved, you got to know that you are a powerful force. Hopefully this makes sense. I know this is a lot that I've been kind of throwing at you. I want you to think about these things. And then finally, a poet. I think that a man should be a poet because he has to be able to communicate the ineffable. Ineffable means indescribable, things that are not able to be communicated. A man has to be a poet to see the beauty in things and not be blurred by lines that have been set by society. Oh, well, this is what it means to be a man. It's to be an alpha. When you go into a room to assert dominance, like, yeah, right. If you really bout it, if you really bona fide, a man don't beg for attention. If you got authority, you just walk in the room and you cool with everybody. Jesus had the most authority of anybody. He wasn't out here trying to beat on his chest, being a gorilla, like, yeah, I'm the alpha male here. And if you really think of things in terms of alpha and beta, beloved, like, come on. There's better things for you to think about than that. Be yourself, beloved. Cry gangster. Cry thug. You could cry, thugs cry too, bro. Cry, beloved. The greatest weapon a man has is his tears, you heard? The greatest warrior that ever existed, Mike Tyson, said that he used to cry in the room before going out to fight. You want to know why? He wasn't crying for himself. He said, I was crying because I was scared of what I was going to do to the next man. Bro, you tell me something like that, bro. Like, you got it, Mike. Let's just hit me off with like 20% and we good. Because if you crying about what you gonna do to me, dog, maybe we don't need to fight, bro. Let's just cry together, Mike. Let's just cry together. But anyways, you need to be a poet in the sense to see things that are not communicated, the beauty of the world, and take that in and implement that in all your actions. And in the same way, if the man is the poet and I want the woman to be the poet as well, then she needs to see herself as the storyteller or the proverbial wisdom keeper, in the sense that look at Proverbs 31. I told you that I think King Lemuel's mother actually gave him all that information if she didn't take the pen and write that herself. So the woman has to know how to implement these things, be the storyteller, add that substance, that narrative to the family. And that dynamic, you guys have to weave that in the courting stage. And then that'll fully develop when you finally get into your relationship. So those are the roles that I think is important for you to develop and see. And let God work in all those things and lead you and teach you. Teach that woman how to seek God. You guys have your own relationships. Personally, you should be disciplined in that. And then when you come together, it's just multiplied. Nobody's picking up slack from nobody. I mean, there's balancing out, but nobody's just slacking for the sake of slacking. We're giving our best to come together and glorify God ultimately through this union. So hopefully all of this stuff makes sense. I don't think there's anything else that I left out. Just continue to develop with the Lord and give it all in God's hands. You won't be shamed in these things. Hopefully this is helpful to you and I can contribute to something in your life. And I can't wait to tell you, we gonna see together what God does in my life, because I don't want to just be a theoretical person. One day I want to be able to say, look, I wasn't just talking. I really learned these things from God. I learned this from my future woman, the woman of my dreams in prayer. And, I implemented these things. I wasn't a blabber. I wasn't a scoffer. I wasn't a talker. I actually walked these things out, and in honoring God, here we go. Now look what God has done in my life. Psalm 126, look what the Lord has done for them. And then hopefully one day I'll have my wife here so that she can tell you from her own testimony. When we come together, I don't even want to talk. I'll be like, boo, here you go. Here you go, mommy. I love you. Tell them what God has done for us, because wow. The things that I've learned from her and the things that I've learned from God is incredible. So the last bit of advice that I would say is to give you comfort. I want to challenge you. Find a single place in the Bible where somebody was rebuked for being too patient and waiting on God. Just one reference. Find it in the entire Bible. And what does that tell you? Is God going to say you waited too long? Not waited too long, because there is such a thing as waiting too long. But you waited on me too long? You were too patient for me. There's no such thing as being too patient. You want to know how? Galatians 5 says that patience is the fruit of the Spirit. After listing the fruits of the Spirit, Paul says, against these things there is no law. So you think that God is going to let you miss what he has for you? You think God is going to let it pass you by? You think he's going to let the devil gloat over him that he stopped his plans? Are you crazy? Está loco. Está loco, eh? You know what I'm saying? Nah, let me stop. So be patient and leave it in God's hands and wait on the Lord, for you will not be shamed. And then, as always, to my wifey, lady, my queen, I really love you. And I hope that you know that I'm showing everything and I'm being vulnerable as possible, not even fearing the consequences, because I don't fear that giving my all, that I have any reason to hold back, because I believe that you will give me your all and you won't hold back. If both of us don't hold back, there won't be any, like, in the world, there's the fear of manipulation, or, oh, I gotta play these games. We don't gotta play those games. I'm showing you by leading first. Here, I'm gonna give my whole self without reservation, because I don't fear love. There's no fear in love, because perfect love casts out fear. And then I want you to follow me. I want you to see that you can follow me. You can submit to me, my love. And we don't have nothing to fear. If we could be authentic with each other, there's something beautiful that God is going to foster within us. And this is for everybody to listen to as well. Because I think this is a fear. It's like, I don't want to give myself, because either A, I won't be accepted for my bald-headed chicken dance, or, they're going to take advantage of me or manipulate me, which was my experience. The only experience that I had, it was like, nah, I don't want to ever go through that again. But I won't let my past, my trauma, impede the intimacy that I can have with you. And if we really have that mentality that we're giving each other up to each other without reservation, love without reservation, we have nothing to fear, because there is no fear in love. And God is the barrier. He's the protector. Then I think that there won't be any of that. Now, obviously, things can be imbalanced at times, and that's okay. We just got to always recognize and always pay attention to the other. Look, they're giving their best. Let me give my best. And then also, I think that the greatest answer to that fear is appreciation. If we truly appreciate the other person and we recognize this, if I always have the mentality, I'm not worthy of this woman, no matter what. So anything I get from her is more than I ever deserve. And if she has that mentality that she's not worthy of me because of what God has done in us, and she can appreciate me, and we always have that appreciation for each other, there won't be any of that playing games, right? There's none of that back and forth nonsense that they do in the world. So I think that's the greatest confidence we have in Christ and God being in our relationship. So hopefully that helps you. This is Los here. I know it was a long episode, but hopefully you guys appreciate this content. Trying to give my best in everything that I do. If you like it, click the like button, comment down below. Put some questions, guys, in regard to any of these things. I want to make the next videos. I want to talk about raising kids eventually. I don't know if next or do the Q&A, but gather questions, put them in the comments. I'm organizing the questions so I could do a full-fledged video. Put that in the comment down below. If you like to support the ministry, click the link in the description below. But anyways, guys, y'all know what it is. It's Los here. We on the throne of positivity where nobody shall dethrone us. We out. Bobo, I love you. No reservations. Give you all of me because God gave all of him. Bye. Peace.